So you know how your internet at home works, right? But have you ever really thought about how a giant global company, I'm talking offices, stores, warehouses scattered all over the globe, how do they keep all that stuff connected?
Let's picture a massive coffee chain. You've got the main corporate headquarters in one city, a huge data center somewhere else, and then literally thousands of coffee shops in places like Dallas, Phoenix, Seattle, you name it. How in the world do they all talk to each other securely and reliably? Because it's definitely not as simple as just having them all hop on the public internet.
Well, the answer is they live in their own private universe of connections. It's called a WAN, which stands for Wide Area Network. You can think of it as the central nervous system for a company. It's the thing that links all their separate private networks together, and it's totally separate from the public internet that you and I use every day.
So let's break that down. You've got your LAN, the local area network. That's easy. It's the network inside one building, your office, your house, that kind of thing. But the WAN, that's the magic glue. It's the big picture technology that connects all of those individual LANs together, no matter where they are. It really is a network of networks.
Okay, but that brings up a really important question. Why? I mean, why go through all this trouble and, let's be honest, all this expense? Why do all these different places need to be in constant contact through a private channel?
It really all comes down to centralizing your critical stuff. I mean, can you imagine trying to put a phone system, an email server, payroll databases, and point-of-sale systems in every single coffee shop? No way! It would be a nightmare. Instead, companies put all that important gear in one super secure, powerful data center. And that means every single location, from the fancy headquarters to the smaller shop, needs an absolutely rock-solid, stable connection back to that data center just to get business done.
So, how did we first crack this nut? Well, we started with the most direct, old-school method you can possibly imagine: dedicated, private lines.
It was called a leased line. And the name is perfect because you would literally lease it, just like an apartment or a car. You'd pay a telecom company a monthly fee, and they would give you a physical cable that connected point A to point B. That's it, just for you. Your corporate office to your data center, nobody else could use it.
Now get ready for this because you might laugh. The speed of the standard T1 line, the workhorse of corporate America for decades, was a blazing 1.54 megabits per second. No, I am not kidding. That's probably slower than the connection on your phone right now. Now, it was amazing for its time, but it really shows you why we needed something better and fast.
So there was a clear trade-off. On the plus side, it was incredibly secure, super private, and totally stable. You got guaranteed performance because it was your own private road. But the downsides were huge. First, it was ridiculously expensive. And second, it just didn't scale. If you had dozens of offices, you ended up with this insane, messy spider's web of individual cables. A total nightmare.
Right, so that spiderweb thing wasn't going to work forever. We needed a smarter, more elegant solution. And that's when companies started turning to their telecom carriers and basically said, you handle the complexity for us inside your magic cloud.
The conversation pretty much went like this. A company would go to the carrier and say, look, I've got an office in Dallas, one in Phoenix, another in Seattle, plus my data center. I need them all to talk to each other like they're in the same building. You figure out the messy part. And the carrier would say, you got it, we'll take care of everything.
And the technology that made all this magic happen is called MPLS. So now, instead of that crazy web of lines, each of your offices just needs one simple connection into the carrier's big network. Then, inside their cloud, the carrier uses MPLS to build you your very own private, virtual network, keeping all your traffic completely separate from everyone else's.
So how does this actually work? This is the really cool part. MPLS works in a weird, unique spot in the networking model that we nerds like to call layer 2.5. It's kind of squished between the normal layer 2 and layer 3. And what this lets it do is slap a special label, think of it like a luggage tag, on all of your data packets. As soon as that packet enters the carrier's network, they see the tag and go, this belongs to Network Chuck Coffee. Keep it on their private highway. It's privacy through smart labeling, not encryption.
Okay, so MPLS is fantastic for connecting all your different branch offices. But what if you need a massive, super high-speed connection between two really important buildings in the same city? For that, we needed something different. We needed Metro Ethernet.
The classic example here is connecting your corporate headquarters directly to your main data center when they're both located in Dallas. A Metro E connection is basically like having the carrier run a giant private fiber optic Ethernet cable under the streets of the city just for you.
We're talking serious speed here. 1 gigabit, 10 gigabits per second. Just a massive data fire hose.
And carriers sell this in a few different flavors, depending on what you need. The most basic is called E-line. That's just your simple point A to point B connection. Then you have E-LAN, which is a bit wilder. It connects multiple sites in a city as if they're all plugged into one giant switch. And there's also E-Tree, which is more of a classic hub-and-spoke design for within a city.
All right, so we've talked about these awesome, reliable, but kind of pricey private options. So what happens when you just need to connect a location and you need to do it on the cheap? Well, that's when everybody's eyes turn to the good old public internet.
Now, the appeal is obvious, right? It's cheap. You can just use a standard business internet connection. But you can't just send your sensitive company data out onto the big, bad, wild internet for anyone to see. So the solution is to build a tunnel, a secure encrypted tunnel called a site-to-site VPN, a virtual private network that keeps your data safe as it travels. The biggest pro by far is cost. It is dramatically cheaper than any private option. But the cons are pretty serious. Performance can be totally unreliable. 1 minute it's fine, the next minute it just sucks. Connections can drop for no reason. And, crucially, you lose any kind of quality of service, or QoS. That's the ability to tell the network, hey, this phone call is more important than that big file download. Over the internet, it's just a free-for-all.
So for years, companies were stuck with this choice. Pay a ton of money for reliability, or save a bunch of money and just pray for good performance. But now, a new technology is hitting the scene that promises to give us the best of both worlds. And that future is SD-WAN.
SD-WAN is such a revolutionary idea. It basically asks the question, what if we could take a bunch of cheap internet connections, like a normal broadband line, a 4G LTE connection, maybe 5G, and use some really intelligent software to glue them all together? That's exactly what SD-WAN does. It's constantly watching all the connections, and if one gets slow or choppy, bam, it instantly moves your important traffic over to a better path. It basically turns a bunch of bumpy country roads into one perfectly smooth superhighway.
And you know what the huge driver is behind this? The cloud. See, in the old days, all the traffic from that coffee shop had to travel all the way back to the central data center first. But now, we're all using services in AWS, in Azure, all over the place. Old networks are terrible at this. SD-WAN, though, is smart. It's built to intelligently and securely send traffic directly to the cloud, wherever it needs to go. It is an absolute game changer.
So there you have it. That's the evolution of the corporate network in a nutshell. We started with those old, clunky, but private leased lines. We moved on to the reliable corporate standard, MPLS. We always had the cheap but risky internet VPN as an option. And now, we're moving full steam ahead into the era of SD-WAN. Smart, flexible, and built for the cloud.
And that leaves us with one last really fascinating thought. With more and more of our critical services moving into the public cloud, and with technologies like SD-WAN that can make any internet connection feel private and reliable, are we actually witnessing the end of the traditional private corporate network as we've known it for decades? Definitely something to think about.